for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. No reads today since it's a special show, and it's a special show because Arizona got its man Jason Scheer, Kentucky power forward. They wished he was Kentucky power forward. San Diego State power forward Keshad Johnson. This is a big time get for Tommy Lloyd. The starting five is probably pretty much set in stone at this point, but Arizona went into this offseason wanting to get tougher, and you know what? They have done it.
Look at you, so excited. Look at you.
Excited. It's a good day.
Yeah, I mean, you can debate the scoring. We've talked about that. He's not going to score as much as Tubelis, but as good of a rebounder, more athletic, tougher, better defender. He's the type of dude that Arizona has been missing for the last few years, I would argue.
Yes, and I hear this all the time, and I'm going to keep bringing this up again. I know that he averaged 7 and 6. Those numbers will be consistent, or will be much bigger at Arizona, and more so than anything. How many times last year were there times when you're like, man, we need some energy out there. You need a guy, a physical bruiser out there. That's exactly what you're getting right here.
I would say 12 and 8 is reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, I would be shocked if he only averaged 7 points a game. Because I think he's going to feast in transition. I mean, he is going to really excel. And you got to remember, San Diego State, while a good team, no one was saying that San Diego State was good because of their offense, right? It was their defense. Arizona is going to give him more offensive opportunities that he's had in his entire career. In the rebounding, the defense, that's going to translate just fine. And like you mentioned, energy. Like if you watch this kid during the NCAA tournament, you watched him in pretty much every game. He always played hard. You never have to worry about that with him.
Well, look in the championship game. He had 13 and 4 right there. He was arguably San Diego State's best front court player in that game. And what he can also do is he gives you a little bit of flexibility defensively as well. We're going to talk about how he fits in offensively. But Jacob Franklin, if you could pull up the graphic of his strengths and some of his weaknesses right here. This was made by Sean DePaz. Very cool stuff right here. But physicality, rebounding, he can finish pretty well around the basket. He's not a shooter, obviously. But another thing, too, Scheer, defensively, he's athletic and strong enough that he can guard a big, but he can also guard a wing in a pinch right there as well. So he can do a lot of things defensively.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'7", so he's not going to guard 5 men. And as we know, Arizona has plenty of those.
Right.
But there's no reason why he can't guard a wing in the Pac-12. And he's got the length and athleticism like, he would have guarded multiple wings in this conference last season. It allows you some defensive versatility. You play him with Pella, and all of a sudden, you've got two good defensive wings. Is the offense there? I like what someone said on the message board. Don't focus on the offense. Focus on what we know is there. We know the rebounding is there. We know the defense, the athleticism, the transition to game. Is he going to come in average 15 points? No, but Arizona was never replacing Azuelis' production. You don't just get a guy that averages 20 points.
20 and 10 in the portal.
Right. So what you do is you try to make up for that in other areas, and that's what they're doing. I don't think there's any argument that next year's team or this year's team is going to be significantly tougher and better defensively than last year's team.
All right, Jacob Franklin, if you could pull up the updated roster right now as well. We got the starting lineup, I think. Sorry, I'm just very, very excited right here. I've almost lost my voice. Okay, so we got Kylan Boswell obviously going to run the point. Jaden Bradley then at the 2. That is, and it's no disrespect because Kerr and Ramey did some very good things, but Boswell and Bradley right there, that is a tougher, more dynamic backcourt to begin with before we even get to the front court here.
Yeah, I mean, right there, it's and the upgrade defensively. Like I know Kerr tried in that area, and I don't think he slacked that much. But Jaden Bradley and Kylan Boswell are above average defenders, right? And they're above average creators. And this team is significantly different than last year's team. It is built nothing like last year's team. We're going to find out how good that is. I trust Tommy in that regard, but you have 2 point guards that can create. Jaden Bradley isn't a great shooter, but he gets to the line. He gets in the paint. It's just a different type of team. And we know that Arizona likes to get out in transition. So if the team's better defensively and they're forcing more turnovers, you're going to score some points that way when last year you really did it.
You made actually a rare good point at one point where you said that let's be honest, with Tommy Lloyd, you're going to probably find ways to manufacture points. You're going to, because of the way that he goes defensively, though, and just getting pushed around. That's kind of been the issue. Again, Arizona struggled against Princeton. I get all of that. But Arizona, let's be honest here, the last couple of years got punked in the tournament. I went into this offseason thinking to myself, we're going to find out really what Tommy Lloyd will do from that kind of approach, what he's prepared to do. And he's overhauled this in a much different way, Sheer. And you got to give him a major tip of the cap right there.
Well, it's funny because like after the Princeton game, remember the message boards were like, oh, Tommy's too happy, or he doesn't realize like the state of the roster and he's not going to adjust. And it's like, he took that loss harder than anyone. It's just, he has a different way of showing it in the public eye. And he went out and said, look, we got to move on from Kurt. And you had your doubts about whether or not he would do that.
I did.
Right.
You did
and
too?
And a lot of people did. And he said, you know what? Time to move on. Brings in a guy, he missed on Nemhard, whatever, recovered very nicely. There were games where as good as Zoo was, he couldn't play at the end of games because he couldn't defend. So he goes and he gets a guy like Keshad Johnson who will finish every game this season. Unless he's injured or in foul trouble, he will be on that court. And every adjustment and guy that Tommy has added, there's been a legit reason behind it.
All right. Speaking of message boards, where can they find the message boards where you delete my comments on stuff like this? Go ahead, Sheer.
WildcatAuthority.com. I should have deleted your newest threads today, but I'm a nice guy.
All right. Kobe Thiel says, shout out to
that too.
We'll get to that. Shout out to Mike for scooping Jason last week. Jason, you will never delete a post again without my approval. Is this fair?
You posted that, and then you realized that he was visiting Kentucky, and and I believe your words were, "You're right. I shouldn't have posted that."
I might have said that, but either way, what I said was true. Check it out. Now let's talk about it. Kentucky. Tommy Lloyd's been beaten up a lot for the recruiting, losing out on players. This is a big win. There's no other way that you can put it. And again, I don't care what anybody says. You can go on any Kentucky Insider. You can watch any Kentucky Insider, and they will tell you that John Calipari really wanted Keshad Johnson. And it's easy why, because John Calipari's best teams are when he has a couple guys like Keshad Johnson, a DeAndre Liggins, somebody that is an upperclassman as opposed to all the freshmen. This was a big coup for Tommy Lloyd. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, like this wasn't one of these fake things where it's like, oh, we'll bring him up on a visit or whatever. Kentucky is legit. And I will say I criticized Tommy at first because, and you brought it up, like Sean Miller was very good at making sure kids never took more visits.
Right.
You committed here or we're moving on type of deal. And Tommy let him visit Kentucky. And it's like, man, you got to be confident to let that kid visit Kentucky out of all places. And it worked. I mean, Arizona legitimately beat out Kentucky. And if you look at the social media and all that, when he took that Kentucky visit, there were a lot of people shifting saying he was going to go to Kentucky. And Arizona beat out, arguably, I mean, look,
maybe the best recruiter in college basketball history.
Right. Like you can say whatever you want as Calipari, the coach. We can debate that forever. He's an amazing recruiter. There's no doubt about it. And I think the people that called Tommy out for recruiting, and we criticize him too, but the people that have called out Tommy for recruiting have not looked good the last few weeks.
And what Tommy Lloyd has done as well is that Tommy Lloyd's a smart guy. I mean, you can watch him for 5 seconds and you can realize that he's a smart guy. And smart people adjust with the times. Look at your guy, Sean Miller, right there, the guy that you covered up your back tattoo of that we talked about on the message board. But the smart coaches, they find ways to, maybe it's sooner than later, maybe it's later than sooner. They find ways to get to where they need to get. And both these guys, obviously Miller doing great at Xavier, Tommy Lloyd doing the same thing here at Arizona. I don't know what this team's upside is this year, Sheer, but I can guarantee you they're going to be a top 20 team somewhere in there, and they're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tougher out, I think, than they were this past year. That's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't know if the regular season is going to be amazing, but I know that when it comes to the tournament, like, and I realize I probably, there were people saying this last year, I'm a lot less worried about a team like Princeton,
right?
Because we saw in person, we saw them fold. They were folding against Princeton when the game got tough.
Right.
Houston, they were folding a little bit. Keshad Johnson isn't folding. Boswell isn't folding. Jaden Bradley, that's not a guy that's folding. Even Pella for all the criticism that Pella has gotten against Princeton, he wasn't awful. Like, he was one of the guys that was still playing hard and all that. I think that Arizona is a much tougher out. And like you mentioned with adjusting, like, there's coaches that adjust. I'll always remember Ben Howland adjusted and did it the wrong way, and it led to him getting fired.
Right.
Sean Miller adjusted at Xavier, and it's leading to success. I think that Tommy Lloyd, this is a case of him adjusting, and it's going to work out.
Do you think that all right, now let's talk about Oumar Ballo. Let's talk Keshad Johnson right there. It's an interesting mix because let's be honest, we love Oumar Ballo on this show, leader of men Oumar Ballo, but Oumar Ballo is also never going to be shooting a jump shot outside of his little push thing from like 6 feet away. Keshad Johnson's not really a jump shooter. He does, like Brad said the other day, he does attempt the elbow jumper, but that's not really his thing. Neither one of these guys are going to be shooters.
Yeah, I absolutely worry about spacing. I mean, I especially in the front court, I think that is a very legitimate issue. We're going to find out. I mean, look, you could say that the spacing will be fine with Pella and Bradley and Boswell. Arizona's still going to add at least one more guard, and maybe they're a pure shooter or a shooting type, and that adds to the spacing. The roster isn't complete right now, but I think that if you were asking me about offensive concerns, spacing would be number one on that list.
Right, but also you're going to have guards as well that are going to be able to penetrate a little bit more than you had this past season. Again, Kirk Kriisa was not a penetrator. Let's be honest. He just wasn't. He wasn't a guy that was going to set you up a lot of times with easy buckets by stressing the defense right there. Courtney Ramey, much the same way, shooting threes. Boswell and Bradley, especially Bradley, you hope, since he's not a very good shooter. Who's next to you right now?
Shelby's laughing because you said penetrator. She's cracking up because you said
Shelby?
the word penetrator.
All right. You know what? We don't like that potty humor around right here. But both of those guys are great penetrators, though. Jaden Bradley, though, can get into the paint. And the same thing there with Kylan Boswell. And, people always bring up, well, Bradley only had 6 points and 3 assists. Again, for the billionth time on an awesome team right there. I think these guys are going to get the big men probably some pretty easy looks down low just from being able to suck in the defense.
And I'll say this. I think Arizona is going to go to the line the most out of any team in the conference.
Right.
I think that Arizona is going to live at the free throw line. Bradley's free throw rate is high. I mean, per 40 minutes, it was one of the highest in the country. Keshad Johnson's going to get to the line. Oumar, we know, is getting fouled. Pella, drew fouls. They're going to draw fouls. And it's a thing where, if you look at Jaden Bradley, and even though his numbers weren't great, when he was on the court playing well, he was very difficult to keep out of the paint. In a Tommy Lloyd offense, Arizona didn't have that guy. Courtney Ramey was supposed to be it a little bit. Kerr, we thought would adjust. He never did. He was still a jump shooter. So we don't really know what Tommy Lloyd's offense looks like with guys that can get in the paint and draw defenders.
All right, we're getting a lot of people asking where exactly does Arizona match up in the conference. You think Andy Enfield is an awful coach. You've said this from day one. You think he's one of the handful. You think he's one of the handful of worst coaches that you've ever seen. You've said this.
I always go back to my question that always gets me out of this argument. Would you hire Andy Enfield to coach at Arizona?
That is not the question, nor will I give you that answer. But I will say that things are interesting now because, again, we know the starting lineup now. I don't know quite why Pella's guaranteed to start. I want Pella playing starter minutes, but either way, that's the start. That's going to be the lineup right there. And we're going to add a couple. They're going to add a couple players too that we will get to here in a second. But Jaden Bradley, Kylan Boswell, Pella Larson, and then up front you got Keshad Johnson and Oumar Ballo. That, at least from a physicality, athleticism perspective, that matches up pretty well with almost any team in the conference, even USC.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, that should be the best defensive team in the conference, in my opinion.
Right.
I know there's stuff to see or whatever, but physicality, defense, that's up there with anyone. It's going to come down to depth and offense. And that we'll find out. But defensively, I'm very cool with that lineup. I'm
more than okay with it. Now, you got to add another perimeter player or two. That's going to be the next mine. And you know what? I feel okay saying this. There might be 2 perimeter players that Arizona might go for. They're for sure going to add one. Looking at adding 2. Arizona's got to get a shooter in there. And it'd be nice if that shooter is somebody that can also make a little bit of plays off the bounce as well.
Yeah, I think ideally you need a guy that could spread the court. We talked about spacing before. You bring in a shooter, a guy you can't leave alone. And it wouldn't surprise me if Arizona added 2 guards. You know, if they could add a developmental guy where maybe he doesn't play as much.
Say it.
If Arizona added DeMarco Dunn, I would want them to add one more guard because I don't want, no offense to DeMarco Dunn, I don't want him to be my 6th man. Right. I don't want him to be my first guard off the bench just because we don't know what to expect. If they add 2 guards and you say, you know what, DeMarco, we're going to play a little bit more this season, and then we're going to kind of increase, and hopefully next year you're much better, I'm cool with that.
All right. One thing, though, I agree with that. So you're okay with bringing DeMarco Dunn in. You've been bullied into submission on this one.
I'm okay as long as he's not the first guard off the bench.
All right. Fair enough. That is fair. Now, let's see here. Okay. So John Rothstein, I guess, has Arizona at 14. John Rothstein blocked me on Twitter, by the way. I don't know that I've ever tweeted at John Rothstein, so I can't really see his stuff. But 14, that when you lose what Arizona's lost the last couple of years, and you're somewhere in that discussion, it shows you that Tommy Lloyd's got a program right here.
14 is cool. I'm good with 14.
I'm good with 14. Is the pack actually going to be fairly decent next year at the top?
Yeah, but we say that every year, and then they're not. That's the problem. Like, listen, this is the year for the pack, and then it's not. Look, we know Arizona. We know USC. We're pretty confident on Oregon. You know, and then UCLA, I think will find things. But, like, Oregon State's going to suck. Cal should be better.
But they still suck.
Yeah, Stanford sucks. Washington sucks.
ASU sucks. Sorry, Jacob Franklin.
What about that for a multi-year guard? I meant to text you that. Frankie Collins.
Oh, I like Frankie Collins. I like Frankie. You know who I like more is the kid that they lost who was smarter and went somewhere else.
Nunez?
Garcia. No, not Garcia.
Nunez.
Nunez.
Went to Ole Miss. That was racist.
Garcia. But yeah, I was thinking that kid's good though. I like that guy.
Yeah, he went to Ole Miss, play for Chris Beard.
I was gonna say he's gonna be tough then if he's gonna play for Chris Beard. Now let's make fun of UCLA here for a minute. By the way, it is funny how the Oregon State fans never come in on threads like this right here. They knew we were coming and they have nothing to say. Shout out to the Oregon State fans. UCLA right now, if I'm looking at this on paper, and again, it's going to be their last year in the conference, obviously, but I feel a lot better about Arizona right now in their roster than I would about UCLA's.
I don't like UCLA's guard situation at all. And to me, it's iffy. I mean, Adembona coming back is great. You know, you figure the international guy Mara's fine, but you're asking Dylan Andrews. We've talked about this before. When you go from playing 10 minutes a game to playing 30 minutes a game, things change.
Right.
And so Dylan Andrews, well, solid. We just don't really know. Their guard situation kind of bothers me, but it's probably going to be a typical Mick Cronin, good defensively, low scoring type of team.
And we can confirm as well, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong. Arthur Kaluma is not coming to Arizona now.
I have been told by the highest of sources that there's no way they could land both players. It was one or the other. Keshad Johnson is in. Arthur Kaluma is out. He'll probably go to Kansas. Or
even with the $1 million offer, though?
Yeah, that's tough. Someone just tweeted at me when I said that Tommy Lloyd beat out John Calipari. They're like, no, you got to take other things into mind, like NIL. Let me tell you something. Kentucky offered Keshad Johnson more money than Arizona. I feel very comfortable saying that.
And that's one of those things, too. You don't even have to background source anything right there to use a Canzano quote right there. You just look at it and you're like, okay. Oh, by the way, we're going to talk a little realignment here before we sign off as well. But again, you beat out Kentucky. Kentucky's got more bells and whistles than Arizona. This was obviously a connection that Tommy Lloyd made with Keshad Johnson, and Keshad Johnson could look at his role and say, that's the best place for me. That's really what this comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, he stays on the West Coast. He's in the Pac-12. He's a starting 4-man for Arizona and playing for an offense that is significantly better and will be able to allow him to do a little bit more than he did last year. When you look at it on paper, just from a strictly what is the best situation for me, Arizona was always going to be at the top because it's just they offer everything that the kid wants.
All right, Arizona's got a lot of big men now. And whenever we talk about the big men on the team, we're always circle back to Dylan Anderson and how this affects Dylan Anderson, how this impacts Dylan Anderson. Dylan Anderson, who came after me on Twitter this week.
He's
by
right.
the way.
Everything he said was right.
You know who else liked his comment going at me on Twitter? Frank Caliendo. Unreal. And then Frank ignored my tweet. But up front, though, now you got Oumar Ballo, 6'10", 250, whatever he is. Then you've got next to him, you've got Krivas, 7'2", 250. Now you got Keshad Johnson, 6'7", 235. You got Henry Vasar, 7 foot, 225. Dylan Anderson, Baby Shaq as we call him, about 7 foot, 235. This is a huge front line.
And they're adding another guy who's 6'8", 6'9".
Right.
You know, it is a monster front line. Someone's going to be left out. Even beyond Dylan, someone's probably going to be left out.
This is funny, by the way.
It is true. But like we've talked about with Dylan, your boy, Dylan should have redshirt. I think if it's on the table, Dylan should absolutely redshirt. But someone's going to be left out. I mean, one of these guys is going to there's not minutes for everyone. It could be Henry. You know, we don't know how the incoming guys will look or whatever, but you know, you can't play 3 7-footers at once.
And again, you're also not going. There's certain guys that just are not going to be able to really play together on this. You know, you're not going to ever see Krivas and Ballo on this court at the same time, unless Henry shows the ability to become a knockdown 3-point shooter. Which, by the way, don't sleep on. You and I have both seen Henry as a shooter.
I will say this: it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Henry get minutes at the 4. I think that is a very legit possibility. That would be your twin tower lineup where he could play next to a guy like Krivas or Ballo with Henry at the 4, but he has to take that next step. But a coach did point out that they believe Henry could play some 4 this season.
Is there any chance that Arizona could ever go with a 4-peak lineup where you got 4 peaks out there and Boswell running the show?
I mean, why not? Why not practice it? Why not throw it out there against Michigan State? Thanksgiving Day.
Dude, have Dylan out there guarding on the wing. I like it in his zone right there. Very good stuff. But overall, though, this is a big get for Arizona. That's the best. That's, you know, if you had lost out here, obviously you could go for Kaluma. But Tommy Lloyd has rebounded very nicely here because there's no other way to put it. Ryan Nembhard was a gut punch for sure. But you get Jaden Bradley, top 30 player, going to be here multiple years, gives you insurance if Kylan Boswell bounces. And you get Keshad Johnson, who is a starter on one of the best teams in college basketball, playing starter minutes. That's a nice little rebound by the Tommy gun.
And they're not done yet. Let's see who they land. At least one more guard. We're comfortable in saying they'll land. And who knows what that guard looks like. I mean, it's very possible that's a very good guard. There
could possibly be 2 or 3 additions to the roster still. So, again, maybe 3. I'm just throwing that one out there right there. By the way, we're waiting for the Keshad photo from the bushes, Mike. I like that. And Andre Veras said, by the way, you owe me a membership because of Andre Veras right there. Andre Veras is good person. Is this the biggest recruiting get in the Lloyd era? Yes, I know Carter is rated higher, but we beat Kentucky. Honestly,
no, but I get why you're saying it.
You know who the biggest one to me is still to this point is Kylan Boswell. That was still, he plays probably the most important position on the court. And he could have gone pretty much anywhere in the country. That to me is the big, but this is a top 3-4 get right there for sure by the Tommy gun.
Yeah, I get it because you beat Calipari head to head. I mean, it may be the most impressive singular recruiting win, but like you mentioned, Boswell to me is still the cream of the crop. Landing Jamari Phillips before he blows up and scores 30 points a game at EYBL could wind up being one of those too.
Have you done your job, though, with the good folks at 24/7, telling him that Jamari Phillips need to be higher rated than he is?
I believe he will move up. I think Carter will probably move down, but I do believe that Jamari will move up in the next rankings.
Can Jamari be a McDonald's All-American?
We're trying here. That's not up to me. We got a few voters. We're trying. Tommy has been active trying to get him there. He belongs there.
By the way, his father is a great follow on Twitter. He has a photo or a video of Jamari shooting out in the street, shooting hoops out in the street in front of the house with one of those little ball pusher back things right there. It looks fantastic. Very excited for both those guys. Also excited about Arizona going to be adding a little bit of skill position to a little bit of talent to their skill positions right there, Jason Shearer.
Yeah, great name. Montana Lamonius Craig committed today.
Great name.
transfer from Colorado. And I know that everybody kind of says that Arizona's wide receivers are really good. The way it was explained to me was, one, he has experience, and two, he'll kind of light a fire under some other receivers. And they if they believe that they can upgrade a position, they're going to do it. The coaching staff says he's an upgrade, so they went and got him.
It's funny. I was talking, I don't think Lamont would mind me bringing this up, but I was texting back and forth with Lamont a little bit about this. And I told him, I said, I'm not keen on adding somebody, because of wide receivers. You got a lot of good young wide receivers. But he said, and he made a great point. He said, listen, man, if you're Arizona and you can get really good players at any position, you do that. This isn't a place where you're trying to make everybody feel good and all this. And Lamonius Craig was a 4-star kid. Now, of course, there's going to be gas bags like Chief that'll say that he's not good, but he is good right there. And honestly, he probably falls right in there. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he caught for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. And
physically, like if you just look at pictures of him and all that, and I've met him once years ago, he's a monster. I mean, he's huge. And so all of a sudden now you have guys like T-Mac and him and Tanner McLaughlin, all these guys that physically, I mean, someone is going to be overmatched. And it gives them flexibility with Cowing. I asked the coach about Cowing. He could stay on the outside. He can move back in the slot. I think we're going to see some new formations and things like that to get these guys on the field. But it's a good pickup. And, if guys that are on the roster are scared of the competition or don't respond well, then you probably didn't really want them all that much anyway.
We do agree, though, that the over of 4.5, take it all day on your BetMGM app right there.
Yeah, that's weird to me. That number's super weird.
It's super weird, but you know what? Sometimes Vegas is just a little bit behind. Vegas isn't backing the A the way that they probably should.
Mike told me, quote, if Arizona wins 6 games, I'm getting a back the A tattoo on my back. Is that what you said? No.
Let's talk about the back the A tattoo. You did say that if Arizona won a national title, you would get a back the A tattoo.
I would consider it, yeah.
Well, that's a lot different.
I will never get a U of A tattoo. No, I love my alma. I will never.
Is Shelby right there? Bring Shelby in here. Shelby, come on. Family affair. Come on. Hop on.
If Arizona won a title, I would consider it. Shelby says the best day of her life is when they won the basketball title. Not marrying me, not having kids. When Arizona basketball won the national title.
She's a smart woman.
And I was like, oh, you mean besides getting married and having kids? She goes, no, that's the best day of my life.
Shelby, you're a very smart person right there. And that is the right answer, by the way. So, all right, Arizona wins a national title. You're getting a back the A tattoo. Or how about this? Arizona football makes the playoffs.
Oh, well, that's easy. I'll take that bet. I feel good about that.
You would do that then?
Yeah, sure.
All right, 29 minutes on what is the date today? Okay, we've got this on record.
Right.
All right. Great news, obviously, for the Arizona Wildcats. Wanted to hop on, have the emergency broadcast or emergency live stream. And no, I will not change the name of that, even though somebody on your board keeps asking me to change that. Does Shelby want to come in here or no?
Shelby doesn't, but hold on. Come here, babe.
What do you got?
Bianca was going to get on it, and then she ran away.
All right. Well, Ted Bordo's also camera shy as well. All right. Before we sign off, where can they find you, Sheer? Where can they see you causing havoc?
WildcatAuthority.com. We're going to run a sale this upcoming week, I think. And then at Jason Sheer on Twitter. And then Shelby and I have the Wildcat Scoop podcast. We'll be doing an episode here soon.
All right. And talk about a tease right here. The best athletic director in the country, the great Dave Hickey, coming on Monday at 3:00. So again, if you have questions for Dave, you can send them this way. Make sure they're nice because Dave is a nice guy. I like Dave, and we're going to have a good time there. But again, Monday, 3:00 right there. Sheer, as always, appreciate you, dude. Shelby, even though you didn't come on, you're awesome. And the great Jacob Franklin behind the scenes as well. But again, Arizona gets Keshad Johnson, Montana, Lamonius Craig. Awesome stuff right there. Oh, one other thing right here, and this is why the people that chime in here are smarter than me. Brett McMurphy, who is pretty much the only person you should follow on this, said, let me get the exact quotes right here. This is about conference realignment right here. Brett McMurphy, who's broken a lot of stuff in the past. Let me find this. All right, hold on. All right, well, no, he didn't break it, but the Nebraska president, Ted Carter, tells Tom Chattel that how big should the Big Ten be? Do we need 4 more Pac-12 teams? I think we have another year or two of the status quo with a few minor changes. But I think over the next year, there's going to be a lot of big changes. That are going to happen. 2 teams that move from one of the Power 5 conferences that causes things to unravel. That's the domino effect. I like this quote a great deal.
That is such a casual quote about the end of conferences. It's always like, yeah, I mean, it's like, how many do we want to add? 2, 4? Do we want to kill this conference or that? It's such a casual quote. It's awesome.
Like, it's fantastic. Awesome quote, and McMurphy is, if you're looking for somebody to follow on the national scene with all this, Brett McMurphy is the best there is by a mile. He's one, you look at his resume, what he's broken. He's broken other conferences, breaking down. He's broken Urban Meyer. This is the dude right here. And Sheer, I know you agree with me.
Yeah, love Brett. And I'm really curious to see how much traction that quote gets, because it kills a lot of people's narratives about how serious realignment is with the Big Ten and all that.
Does it hurt the spidey senses?
Yeah, it might hurt the spidey senses. We'll see what they're saying now.
All right. As always, it's awesome to be an Arizona Wildcat fan. Back the A. Jason Shearer, we'll talk with you soon. Jacob Franklin behind the scene. Everybody that chimed in, I'll be back with you Monday. Again, 3 o'clock with Dave Hickey. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.